All right, let's do lesson 4 on solving proportions and calculating percent of a number. Okay, so a proportion is when you have a relationship between quantities that involves scaling. So easiest way to solve a proportion is to use cross multiplication. So if you have two fractions that are equal to each other, but you're missing one of the numbers, then, like for example, a basketball player gets 3 out of every 10 shots in. If they take 72 shots, how many are they going to get in? Situations like that where you're scaling something up or scaling it down. Easiest way to do it is solve by cross multiplication. So I've got this little image here that shows it, but essentially you want to multiply the two numbers that are diagonally across from each other. So in this case, that would be 3 and 72. That's why it's called cross multiplication. And then you want to divide by the other number that's across from what you want to find. So we want to divide by 10. And so when you type that in, you get 21.6. Okay. Let's solve each of these. I would recommend just pausing here and trying these on your own, but you can do them along with me too. So first thing you want to do when you're cross multiplying is you find the two numbers that are across from each other and you multiply them. 45 times 135. And then you want to divide by the other number that's sitting across from what you want to find. So here we're trying to solve for x. So we divide by 12. I should say here too, it says solve each proportion. What solve means in math is you want to find out typically what the x value is, what the missing number is. So where you see the x, that's what we're trying to figure out. X represents a number here, and we want to solve for it. So I'm going to type this in. 45 times 135 divided by 12. And I get 506.25. No need to round there. The question doesn't ask us to, so we can just write x equals 506.25. That's my answer. Okay, next one. Find the two numbers that are across from each other and divide by the other number. Notice this one is has units. Often when we're solving proportions, we're going to be working with units. So 150 kilometers in 2 minutes is some number of kilometers in 9 minutes. So we want to make sure we have the correct units. The units are going to match. Okay, so we're looking for kilometers here. Kilometers per minute, kilometers per minute. Okay, so x is going to be 150 multiplied with 9 and then divided by 2. So I'm going to type that in. 150 times 9 divided by 2. I just realized I forgot a 0 here. There we go. 675. And this one has units, kilometers, that match. Okay, and this one has units as well. Now this one here, I put something different. So notice in the denominator of that first fraction, it says $55, and then it just says hours or H. So if there's no number here, that just indicates a 1. So what we want to do here, it says $55 in 1 hour, $2,200 in an unknown number of hours. So the units here we're looking for are hours, and we can use our cross multiplication. So $2,200 times 1 hour divided by $55. And I get, I've typed that in already on my own, 40. Okay. So those are proportions. That's the easiest way to solve for a proportion. Okay, let's talk about percent of a number now. Percent of a number is just a way to say a part of a number. Let's say we want to, as a fraction of 100. Okay, so let's say we want to do 22% of 80. So if I look here at the bottom of this number line, here's 80. And on the top, I've matched the scale up to be out of 100. So it looks like 22% would be about here. So I'm expecting a number like maybe just a little bit bigger than 16. One way to do this is to use a proportion, use cross multiply. So we know that 22% is 22 out of 100, and we want to know how much out of 80 that would be. So we can cross multiply. So we'd go 22 times 80 divided by 100. And we would get 17.6. That matches what my picture shows, just a little bit bigger than 16. Okay, now another way to do it, which is I think much faster, is just to use your calculator. And calculators work with decimal numbers. So when we say 22% of 80, in math, when the word of comes after a decimal or a percentage or a fraction, it means multiply. So you can take your calculator, and because it works in decimals, we want to use the decimal number. So 0.22, that's the same as 22%, and of means multiply, and then just 80. Oops, I don't know why I typed that. Okay, 17.6, see how I got the same answer. So that way is a little bit faster. You can have a preference or do whatever way you like. We're going to use, so we're going to try using both methods here to calculate the tax, and then you can decide which method you prefer. So a really common way to use percents is in money, discounts, taxes, things like that. So let's look at this one here. It says there's 5% tax on a pair of $129 shoes. How much is the tax? So we want to figure out what 5% of 129 is. So the first way to do it is by solving a proportion. We know 5% is 5 out of 100. And we want to know how much out of 129 that is. So we set up a cross multiply. We go 5 times 129 and then divide it by 100. Let's type that in. 5 times 129 divided by 100. $6.45. So tax is $6.40. What did it say? 45 cents. Okay, let's do it the multiplication way. So we want to do 5% of 129. So remember, calculators work in decimals, so we convert this to a decimal. Of means multiply. And so this is what we type in for our calculator to understand. 0.05 times 129, and I should get the same answer, because actually I'm just doing the same calculation. See how they both are $6.45. Okay, about 18% of students in a school use cafeteria daily for their lunch. How many students is that? So we want to do a proportion. Again, I recommend you pause here and just try this on your own. 18 out of 100 is 18%, and we want to know how much of 100 or 1,500 that is. So we want to do our cross multiply. 18 times 1,500 divided by 100. Let's type that in. $270. So that means 270 students use the cafeteria at this school. Not this school, but a school. Okay, excuse me. Okay, next we do 18% of 1,500. Remember, our calculator works in decimals, so we change that. Of means multiply when it comes after a proportion like this, and then we get 270 when you type that in. So same answer. So you can prefer whatever method you like to use for a percent of a number, either cross multiply or I should box my answers here, or the multiplication method. That's totally fine.